Hello everyone, welcome back to the cavern. xBundok here. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We do have a miniature paint, but we're going to build onto that and try and make them a little diorama so we can put them into the bookshelf. So here is my Strahd mini. I got them from Paint It or Not over on Etsy. They're the same folks that printed out the orc larger print that I did a couple videos back, and I'll leave a link in the description of this video if you're interested in their store. I mean, after 2 miniatures, I'm very happy with their print quality and I like what they put out, and they have some really excellent sculpts over there. So what we're going to do after this primer is we're going to just add a couple of layers with the airbrush onto the cape and maybe trying to get a little bit of skin tone on there that's not skin tone since he's a vampire. But I'm not going to record that just because it makes it a little bit difficult with my setup. So we're just going to phase into what it looks like after. So once I got that skin tone on there, I also went over the clothing a little bit just to lighten it up to kind of make the reds that I'm going to put on there pop more. On the back, we have a couple of different tones in there. We've got gray, brown, white. My exposure was just a little bit high throughout this whole video, so I do apologize. So we're going to sit down, we're going to get a whole lot of base coats on him, a whole bunch of different colors that we're going to be doing through here. So I'm going to be doing red for the main part of his clothing with black accents. So that heraldic red is what we're going to be using. The maroon red is going to be for the collar. So you'll see here, we're just going to sit down and get some paint on there. So we're going to get that heraldic as the backdrop. Now, with most people, like most people who are painting a villain akin to Strahd, you know it's red and black, not only because, I mean, that's the general thematic with vampires, but it's listed in the books. That's his thing. You never know which way you want to do it, because I was also thinking of doing all black garments with red accents, which would also look cool. Ultimately, I went with the red because the black I'm putting on the detailing on there, because if you see, it's made to look akin to Castle Ravenloft, and that's kind of why I picked up this figure. It's a bit more, I guess, tribal design that I would like for him, but I do like that effect of the castle coming out in his clothing. So we're just going to sit down, get some color on, and I'll come back in a little bit later. Alright, so while we're finishing up these reds, we're going to go and transition to some other colors as well. I just wanted to say, with recording for this figure, so I've explained this before, I record on my phone, which isn't the best, but it's me, the phone's in between me and the mini, so I'm quasi looking through the phone to see what you guys can see, but also trying to look at the mini, but it just kind of gets in the way. I didn't record a ton of the active painting in this video. Apologize the noise in the background. The cats are full of beans this morning. So here we're going to do a couple more color listings. We're going to do a crimson red for his belt and part of his sash that ends up coming down. And then I also show the plant mail that I'm going to use for the chainmail, as well as, I don't remember, what else did I show here? Oh right, the adamantium black. I'm going to do that over the castle detailing on the bottom. So for this video, I didn't show a whole lot of the painting process just because there's a lot of nooks and crannies where I'm literally holding the mini maybe 3 inches from my face, which, I mean, you guys don't need to see that. It's not exciting content. So there's a lot of chops going forward where I'm just going to show you where it's at different stages. Hopefully that's okay. I also didn't want to film a whole bunch because you guys kind of know my painting process by now, unless I go to start something different, because the second half of this video is actually how we end up building the little diorama. So now we're going to get these reds on here and some of the black onto the castle accent. And I will say it was a little bit of a pain. I had to do like the usual beginner thing where, oh, I got a little bit of black on the red, I got to go over it with red. Oh, I got some red on the black, I got to go back over it with black. And it was just back and forth. And eventually I had to just be like, look, it's okay. Once we do a wash, nobody will notice. You know, I'll be the only one that knows it's there. And sometimes you guys have to learn, and that's a lesson I still have to learn, is when to just put a mini down when you're done. That is definitely one of my biggest issues, is I can be sitting there and I'll keep reworking something until I think it looks right, and it's never going to look right. I think that's one of the problems I have, especially when it comes to skin tones and faces. So the thing I think I have to work on the most in regards to this paint is definitely his facial features at the end. Now, granted, I haven't painted a lot of faces. I do mostly monster paints because that's generally what I enjoy. But we've been playing Ravenloft lately. Again, I'm sorry about the bells. Clem's just going ham on some of his toys this morning. We've been playing a lot of Ravenloft lately, and I've been reading through the book, so I thought, you know, we'll make a little insert to put with all of our Forgotten Realms novels and things like that. And so it's just for the novelty of it. So he's not table ready, he's not good in competition, he's kind of just a for fun paint. And that's kind of what I'm trying to keep reminding myself whenever I look at it, and I want to keep changing. So at the end of the day yesterday, I just said, look, we're putting them in the case. We just have to be done. We just have to be done with them. Hey Clem, when's your turn with the brain cell, buddy? Not today. You just kind of. All right, so this is where we're at after the black and reds are on. So we're going to go through, we're going to do, essentially fill out this mini. So we have the silver that we're going to be putting on the chainmail, and I end up doing gold edging on it, which I think looks awesome. We also end up doing his outer cloaks in a black, red, black kind of deal, which, because I couldn't tell if they were all supposed to be one or if they're separate. And honestly, I wouldn't put it past Strahd to wear like 12 layers of clothing just to look, you know, well, it's Strahd. If you guys end up reading Vampire the Mist, he takes Jander going shopping and for custom tailored, like, he's Strahd. He just wants to come across as well, maybe not come across as ostentatious, but I mean, he's gaudy. Let's be real. He's a vampire. They kind of have to be. So this is where we're at. A couple stages later, so we still have to do the staff, some of the tassels, and the leather strapping going across his chest, his shirt. I kind of like the gold and silver. I really wasn't sure when I had first started, but I think it makes it pop pretty well. Because I didn't want to go with too many grays to feed into the schematic. I wanted to just have the outer cloak as gray, because I thought if I did that for any detailing, it would just be a little bit too much. So I end up mixing a darker red to work for the tassels, as you can see here, and the staff as well. So what we're going to do, this is what he's looking like before we do any washes or highlighting or anything like that, and that's what's going to be next. So for the washes, I'm not going to use one for the entire mini. So we have the I can never say it right, Targar shade, which I end up using for his skin because it's a bit of a purple, and again, he has no blood flow. Regular blacks and brown washes from Monument Hobbies, and then the strong and soft tones from Army Painter. So if we see here, I'm going to do the black wash on his cloak. I end up using the strong tones on the reds and blacks in the clothing, as well as a little bit of the gold. I use the soft tone on the white of his shirt because we're going to go over, that just a little bit. So after the wash, we'll do a little bit more of the white to make it pop. And yeah, I didn't do a red tie or what have you there. I went full white just because I felt like that would work with the contrast, just white on white for some reason. Because I also think, I'm looking down the line like, all right, if he goes out to feed like blood splatter on all white, I mean, that would just look cool if I ended up doing that. If I wanted to add any effects, I guess, we'll say, to his mini. But I ended up using the strong tone for quite a bit just because it made it pop a little bit more. So after this little bit here, I'm going to show you what he's looking like after all the washes. And here he is. So like I said, that's after just the wash. We're still going to go over with similar colors to do some highlighting. So we're going to get some, or maybe this is more washing. I don't even remember what order the videos go in. There was so much recording. I think this might be the strong tones that we're doing on the red. Yeah, it is. So we'll get to it. I'll show you what he looks like after the washes and then what he looks like after the highlighting. right, so here he is after all of the wash. And like I said, we're going to go through and do a little bit of highlighting. For some reason, I can't get the pictures to not be ridiculously dark in this video editor, so I apologize. It has like a dramatic tone filter on it or something that makes them look not great. But you'll see the finished mini at the end in the Diorama 2 on video, which looks just a little bit better than these pictures, but you can see how we got that little extra highlighting there in the fabric, as well as back on the metals and things like that. And again, I love the silver and gold for the cuffs. I think they just really popped excellently. So on to part 2, making a diorama, which I've never really done. I kind of always dabbled in it, never did great. But again, this is supposed to be a bookshelf insert. So I got one of the action figure cases from the local bookstore, art store. And so here you'll see the sizing. It's not obscene. The first thing I had to figure out was whether I wanted the lengthwise out or the depth-wise out, you know, whether I wanted a more narrow face or a wider face. I originally wanted the wider side facing out because I could fit 2 windows in. I ended up turning it simply because of the base that came with Strahd. So front to back, I had to have the base fit and then a wall fit in the back, and it just wasn't going to happen having it lengthwise, you know, longwise up front. You had to have the narrowwise up front. So what we're going to do, and we're figuring out here, putting the battery pack underneath because we're going to have lights that go up the back to light up a window as well as some clouds / mist effect in the back of it. So I'm going to sit down, I'm going to figure this out. All right, so the casing inside is 7.5 inches tall, 4 3/4 inches wide, and 3 3/4 inches deep, I think. So, like I said, I originally wanted 2 windows there. I end up turning it so that shorter side ends up just being, well, I wrote down that they were the same dimensions. They're not. One isn't. So I end up turning it so we end up having 1 window, and we're going to have that cotton misting on the back. In between that is going to be the lights. On the next is going to be the wall. So that way it looks like there's light coming in through the stained glass window. So you can see here, this is me deciding, like I had said, longer front to back because his base takes up 2/3 of that container. So what we end up doing at the end, you'll kind of see, is underneath him is where I put the battery pack for the lights, and then I fix the wall to the base so that it just stands a lot easier and you're not working too much. I think my main issue here was just space. If I wanted to do this again, I would get one with a deeper base on it, the black portion, so that you could actually set the battery pack in and have foam around. So it just sits better. So if none of you know the XPS foam trick, you get your foam, you cut it down to size, and you get a ball of foil and you start rolling over it. And that's going to be your stone texture. So on the back, we drew out how we would want our window to be shaped. So we're going to cut through the back so that you're not ruining any texturing you've just done on the front. And then we're going to add a little bit of texture to the inside of that window then too. So working with XPS foam, love-hate relationship, definitely much easier with one of the hot wires or hot knives. Sometimes you can also just hold your X-Acto knife over a lighter if you're at the end of life term for the blade, which is what I did. I knew I had to toss that one soon, so I just heated it up so the first couple would go through easy. And yeah, you're just gonna go through and cut it and pop it out. All right, so this is where we're at right now. Obviously, they're not going to be solid slate walls, so we need to add some brickwork, which isn't too bad. Oh, and before you do that, that's what I wanted to say there. Trace the window shape down onto paper before you start getting too crazy with anything. That way it'll be easier to figure out the illustration later. So for these lines, you just kind of score what you'd want with the X-Acto knife just on the top, and then take a blunt pencil, not a super sharp one, and go through those scorings. So it'll give you little rounded divots where the bricklaying is supposed to be. If it cuts, that's fine. You can, use the tip of the pencil to kind of push it in, because then it looks like the stone's broken away or chipped. And as we know, Ravenloft is in severe disrepair, and I have the idea that this window is in the chapel, which is why it's, boarded up, and Strahd may not very well be accepting of the fact that for some reason there's a window for Tatiana in the chapel before anything. So you're just going to do that the whole way down, super quick, super easy, versus building separate bricks for everything, which if you're doing something else, like if you're doing terrain, 100%, I kind of get that if you're trying to do walls for terrain and things, but for a large panel like this, I'm not going to want to try and trust that it's going to stay all together, so we're just doing this to one piece. So what we're going to do is we primed up our foam, and you can see there's still pink showing, and that's fine because it kind of soaks in the paint sometimes. So we're going to do a lighter gray wash over all of this, and then we'll get into a little bit of texturing. So the only foam I've really worked with is building some dungeon tiles. So obviously gray brick flooring, you're used to it. So this is one of the things I like to do. I like to get, a very poor brush. It's not shaped great, it's not fluid, but you take a little bit of that lighter color, you put it just on the top, and you wipe off any excess. And your brush is still wet, and you just pull it down over top of the stone. And that kind of gives you the effect of, things have been running there, dripping. It gives a natural gradient wearing effect, and you can see it there. It's nothing exorbitant. It's just adds a little bit of variation to your brickwork, especially if you don't want to use different colors, if you think they'd be using the same ones. So now we're going to take some of our balsa wood and stain it up and cut it so we can put some boards across this window, because we can't have any light coming in. Now for our stained glass, again, we're going with a Tatiana theme because I think that would be what works. Even if I can't draw, we're just rolling with it. So what I did, I took some translucent, not tracing paper, but effectively tracing paper. And I went through and did that for the window. So just color pencil on the window to keep it solid, put it onto the back there, and we've got our lights, and then the stuffing on top, which is going to be the mist. So that whole tiered system, like I said. You're going to pull out your trusty hot glue gun. We're going to hot glue the wires to the back along with the stuffing, and this is what we get. Effectively, it works. Might do something different in the future, because it does look like, a grade schooler did a craft project at home. But for my first attempt, I'm okay with it. I'm happy with it. I might go in the future and grab an airbrush and add a little bit of color tinting to the mist, the clouds, and add some blue and gray. But all in all, I do have some pictures. I think he looks great. I think definitely not what I expected. I expected a little bit better out of myself, but I'm still happy with it to have something like that to put on our bookshelf. Let me know down in the comments if you guys have ever done anything akin to this. If you had a mini that you set up not to be like a mini, like you wanted it just solely on display and you painted it for something for yourself. Because I think it's something good to do, just to get a little practice in and enjoy and not be worried about something being on the table, but just making it something that's yours. So as always, like and comment if you enjoyed the video, if you have anything to say, any suggestions. Subscribe if you want to come back for more. We're doing videos every other week, and in between those, we're doing some live streaming. As always, thank you all for watching. You're great. You're a great viewer base. You always interact, and you folks are wonderful. You guys take care, and I'll see you in the next video.